Hey, folks. Beautiful Day shines as a Providence, Rhode Island-based social enterprise with a unique mission to provide comprehensive paid job training to refugees who are involved in every step of making their award-winning gourmet granola. They run 4 paid training programs: job training for adults, internship program for youth ages 15 to 18 with community partners, entrepreneurship training for Afghan women interested in starting food businesses, management training for refugees interested in learning customer service and sales by managing one of our farmers markets. The job training programs further their mission of connecting refugees to their communities through business, job training, and education. Refugees come from all around the world: Syria, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, Burundi, Somalia, Eritrea, and Iraq. Even though they speak different languages, their granola chef, originally from Iraq, helps their refugees go beyond language barriers by fostering teamwork and building confidence while making the best tasting granola you have ever tried and learning English. The program's 350 hours, approximately 3.5 months. They also help them pursue further education, get a job placement, start their own business. The granola is made with premium organic oats, grains and seeds, and dried fruit, spices, no preservatives. Binding it together is local honey. What sets this granola apart is it's designed for snacking. And believe me, I've hit this stuff hard in the office. You guys got to take this home because I'm going to eat too much. It comes like you pull it out and like there are big chunks of it. So you eat it like a granola bar. They have granola bars as well, too. It's delicious. They have 4 flavors, standards anyways: Keith's Original, Pistachio, Cardamom, Mochaccino, Hazelnut, and Ginger Zinger. They also have specialty granolas of the month. This month is Cherry Chocolate. They have muesli flavors available. It's all high in protein. They got fiber bars in 6 flavors: Keith's Original, Banana Foster, Mochaccino, Hazelnut, Pistachio, Cardamom, Salted Mango, Bourbon Pecan. Order, go to beautifuldayri.org. That's beautifuldayri, RI for Rhode Island.org. It is amazing. And grab me a bag right over there on the thing. You can see it right on the package. There's barely anything left in this thing. I literally opened this today. It is proudly made for you by refugees. Can't read the proudly part because I opened it up and I've been eating a ton of this. Now you have to get this away from me. Let's start the show. So delicious. We'll put a link in the bio. Our descriptions. Go.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, February 24th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Eric Blanc, Assistant Professor of Labor Studies and Employment Relations at Rutgers University, organizer trainer in the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, author of We Are the Union, How Worker-to-Worker Organizing is Revitalizing Labor and Winning Big. Meanwhile, federal workers are in disarray as Elon Musk demands emails justifying their jobs. House Speaker Mike Johnson aiming to vote on one big, beautiful bill tomorrow. Expect a total crap show and massive cuts to Medicaid. Meanwhile, 18 days until a government shutdown. And those are not business days, ladies and gentlemen. Trump administration fires 2,000 U.S. aid employees after a Trump-appointed judge lifts his stay. A Biden judge extends the block on Trump's assault on NIH medical research, although it appears those in charge of the NIH are ignoring it. Meanwhile, firings at the FDA, gutting food safety and medical device safety teams. Measles outbreak in Texas grows amongst unvaccinated as the Lesser Kennedy begins a reevaluation of the schedule for childhood vaccines. Trump fires Joint Chiefs Chairman plus 5 others and the top military lawyers for Army, Navy, and Air Force. For now, the Supreme Court of the United States rejects Trump's bid to fire a top government whistleblower protector. Far-right surges in German elections as Germany's new leader says, we might as well stop thinking about the U.S. And lastly, you knew it had to come. Dan Bongino named to number 2 at the FBI. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Emma Vigeland out today. Well-deserved rest. Something changed in the tone of my audio coming to my headset. Somewhere on that. I don't know what it is. Or maybe it's just something happened inside of my head. I'm back with a moderately successful vacation. I don't really... Oh, I'm not going to whine about that right now.
Still
Whatever.
Tell us the Disney World story.
I wasn't here. I know. Disney stories. It was a staycation. And I got a room painted.
There you go.
Meanwhile, folks, I've been also very busy, forcing everyone to work on the show this weekend. It just occurred to me at one point, I think it was maybe Friday, well, technically Saturday morning at about 2:30. I had taken way too many Seder gummies and had been drinking. And so I required everyone on the show to send me emails by 5 p.m. today to justify their jobs. What have you been doing? What have you been doing? I wasn't here the past week. I'd like to know exactly what it is you did. And coincidentally, that's also what happened with our federal government. I mean, honestly, if I had just told you that I did that, I would hope everybody in this audience would react with, man, what a total dick.
I think, yeah, as opposed to, oh, wow, they're getting efficient over there. I'm ready to start subscribing now.
Yeah, exactly. Now I realize that my subscription dollars will be stretched even further. Here is Donald Trump on Saturday tweeting out. Now, look, I don't want to get too deep into the psychology of Donald Trump's relationship with Elon Musk. All you need to know, and this should have been obvious from the beginning, when Musk says anybody in the House or the Senate who goes against what Donald Trump wants is going to get a well-funded primary challenge. Once you realize that Elon Musk was willing to open his coffers to benefit Donald Trump, there is no amount of personality issues that are going to drive these two apart. They have completely aligned incentive structure. And so Donald Trump going out there, he still probably has a little bit of psychological issues associated with this, but this is the way he deals with it. Elon's doing a great job, but I want to make it clear I'm boss, so I would like to see him get more aggressive. Remember, we have a country to save, but ultimately to make greater than ever before, MAGA. MAGA, I guess. Boot MAGA is what the new term is, boot MAGA. but MAGA, I guess.
5 a.m.
And then, by, within a couple hours later, Elon Musk comes up with the plan. Here he is, consistent with President Trump's instructions. All federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they've got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Now, putting aside the sort of the legal issues associated with that, I would imagine a lot of people last week were just dealing with the complete uncertainty of whether they have a budget, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, et cetera, et cetera. So, and some agencies are balking at it. Some agencies are, leaders are saying, yes, all hail President Trump and his Vice Chancellor Musk. Now, people have to send an email, and I just want to do this as a public service, okay? People have to send the email to hr@opm.gov. And can we go back to Musk's original tweet for a second? All federal employees. Look, you folks aren't all federal employees, but you can set an example for what federal employees should do. Freedom's not free. If we want our federal government to work efficiently, we all have to account.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the federal government.
100%. And if you want to show MAGA, if you want to make America great again, you got to do something like this too. So we've Bradley's given you the email address. I wish we could get that a little bit bigger. hr@opm.gov. Now, here's an example of something that I've written up, but how did I write this up? Sam, how did you manage to figure this out? Like, do you have training in this type of thing? And I don't. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but what I do have is ChatGPT. And so I asked ChatGPT, I asked it if I wanted to write an email to the OPM based upon this Musk thing, they said there's a couple of things that you could do. And I may have added, if it was going to be as annoying as possible. One, make it extremely long-winded, use excessive detail, irrelevant anecdotes, and over-explanation, include unnecessary jargon, use technical terms, bureaucratic language, and acronyms that they may not recognize, ask redundant and confusing questions, use formatting cases, mix fonts, bold colors, and italics inconsistently. We get a lot of that actually to the show. You can do this with ChatGPT. They will actually write one. You can say, Elon Musk has asked federal workers to justify what they did this week. If I wanted to write an annoying version of that email, what would it look like? And they'll write it up for you. I had written my own freehand, not as good maybe as the ChatGPT, but so this is what I did. I just put them like days, and then I ran out of interest after like Monday. But Monday, rid office of all DEI coffee and pastry, which means only American coffee in the office, and ripped a croissant out of a coworker's hand. Tuesday, kept my ears open, looking for people using DEI language, and formulated a list of people in office who use the letters DEI, more often than others, or in a suspicious manner, or suspiciously often. For example, we have a plastic container with pencil pretzels. I think everybody knows what those, like the really narrow pencil pretzels. Not sure that's authorized. because you don't know if it's authorized these days. Often, people don't screw on the lid tightly enough. Then people grab for it, the lid flies off, and pretzels will spray everywhere. So a certain coworker, I have obviously deleted the name of the coworker here in this email for this audience, but you can name a coworker, or you can come up with or you can just call him coworker, has a strange reaction where one would normally say this darn thing keeps flipping open. This person wrote, or I should said, but this darned thing. Why use two D's? Then follow it up with every I'm. The coworker seemed to drop the T. So in other words, but this darned thing, every I'm. This coworker is not British, yet they dropped the T. Darned. D. Highlight that. Every. E. I'm. DEI. Anyways, I will continue to observe this person. Wednesday, tweeted outlandish conspiracy theories. Let's see what else. Made a spreadsheet of all actions taken Tuesday described above. Thursday, changed all screensavers in the office to the word MAGA. And Friday took a personal day. Now, you can write your own email, but the point is, if you want to show solidarity with federal workers or show solidarity with Doge, it works both ways. You should do this. hr@opm.gov, what I did last week. And you should start it by saying, in support of what Doge is doing, I stand with Doge and want you to know what I did last week.
And I would like a promotion for supporting the Doge mission.
Well, you don't want a promotion because they're firing. People understand this.
Promotion isn't like I don't get fired.
No. Yeah, all the probationary workers in the federal government are being fired. That includes people who have worked there for years, but just recently got a promotion. So if you're in a new job, you're going to get fired. And of course, all the new initiatives, that's why at the FDA, a lot of the medical device stuff, safety is gone now because they hired a bunch of AI experts to dig into what medical devices are doing. And they all got fired. They were obviously the most recently hired because it's a new thing. So innovation will actually cost you your job in the federal government now. You see how effed up this is? We've got a lot of other footage we'll play during the fun half of the program of people who are finding out how screwed they are. Whether they worked for the federal government, thought Donald Trump was a businessman going to come in and create efficiency, or whether they, I don't know, own a family farm. 1/20th, more than 1/20th of the U.S. aid budget annually paid U.S. farmers. Bought food off them. Never mind all the sort of USDA cuts and whatnot. If you think this is about efficiency, you are not paying the slightest bit of attention. This is about destruction of the administrative state. When Elon Musk takes a chainsaw and goes to CPAC, he's not talking efficiency. He's talking about the destruction of the administrative state.
I like the Republicans that when they get one of their toes stepped on with this saying, oh, I actually think it might be better to go in with a scalpel.
Yeah.
Like there's no scalpel here.
There's no scalpel. Of course not. All right. Couple of words from our sponsor, and then we'll be talking to Eric Blanc. according to the CDC, to the extent that it still exists, fewer men than women meet the minimum daily intake for fruits and vegetables. Men are more likely to overvalue exercise and undervalue nutrition. Enter Ritual. It's a multivitamin scientifically developed for men to help fill nutrient gaps in their diets. I like to break the mold by not being really that conscious of both of either getting exercise or nutrition. I don't. That's my thing. But for a couple of years now, people know that my vitamin D levels have finally gotten to a healthy level after my doctor told me, what do you do? Do you sit inside all day? Do you ever see sun? No. You got to take vitamin D. I've tried. But Ritual makes it much, much easier. Ritual comes with 10 key nutrients and 2 delayed release capsules per day designed to dissolve later in the small intestine, an optimal place to absorb nutrients. And I will also say the best part about, well, not the best part, well, one of them, the whole thing for me is to actually make a habit of it. If you have to wait till you have food to eat your vitamin, you will forget. That's what happens to me. So I see my vitamin on the counter, I take it in that moment because Ritual is gentle on an empty stomach. It's rigorously tested and validated by third party for allergens, microbes, and heavy metals. Ritual multivitamins, vegan, non-GMO, project verified, gluten and major allergen free, made traceable. So you know where the ingredients come from. Ritual uses scientific tools to select lower carbon packaging, prioritize sustainably sourced ingredients, and set ambitious climate goals. Ritual is a female-funded B Corp, meaning they're holding themselves accountable to not just their company's financial health, but to the health of people and our planet. Also, the other great thing about it is I have it on a subscription service. So I don't have, my doctor says I need to take vitamins. I go buy vitamins, and then I finish that bottle, and then I don't get another one until the next year when I go for my checkup. Essential for Men is a quality multivitamin from a company you can actually trust. Get 25% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/majority. That's ritual.com/majority for 25% off your first month. Put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, this episode brought to you by Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks. Zippix brings you a totally satisfying, convenient, and great-tasting way to curb your nicotine cravings. Now you can get your nicotine fix anytime without having to rely on smoking or vaping. Zippix toothpicks give you an easier and better and more discreet way to get your fix. Folks, smoking is very much so 1993. Honestly, it's not in your future. Now's the time to start weaning yourself off. They're available in 6 great long-lasting flavors. They have 2 options, 2 milligram and 3 milligram in nicotine, so you can, taper it down. Zippix toothpicks are perfect for flights, sporting events, restaurants, literally anywhere. Everywhere that smoking and vaping are banned. They're one of the most cost-effective nicotine products on the market. They're proudly made in the U.S. If you're not a nicotine user, or if you're trying to get away from your nicotine habit, you can step it all the way down. You can do what I do. Caffeine and B12 Zippix infused toothpicks gives you a little quick energy boost. And the toothpicks, that was a big part of how I got off smoking. Because you get an oral fixation. Zippix have already helped hundreds of thousands of customers get their nicotine fix without having to inhale smoke or vape oils. So what are you waiting for? Give your lungs a break and try Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks. Ditch the cigarettes, ditch the vapes, get some nicotine-infused toothpicks at zippixtoothpicks.com. Today, get 10% off your first order by using the code MajorityReport at checkout. Your lungs and your family and you will be glad you did. Must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine, of course, is an addictive chemical. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix nicotine toothpicks. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. All right, quick break. When we come back, Eric Blanc, assistant professor of labor studies, employment relations at Rutgers, organizer trainer in the EWOC, or Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, and author of We Are the Union, How Worker-to-Worker Organizing is Revitalizing Labor and Winning Big. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Joining us now, or returning to the program, I should say, Eric Blanc, assistant professor at labor studies and employment relations at Rutgers University, organizer, trainer in the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, author of We Are the Union, How Worker-to-Worker Organizing is Revitalizing Labor and Winning Big. Eric, welcome back to the program. I think the last time you were here was probably several years ago. I can't remember exactly when the last time, but so much of what you've written here is reminds me of your book on the Red State Revolution, Rebellion, I should say, which was about teachers going on strike in states where there was no teachers unions, and people just deciding like we're going to go on strike without the structure that one generally assumes needs to exist. How is this like an extension of that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people were worried, rightly so, about what would happen to the labor movement under Trump for obvious reasons, and we're seeing the intense attacks. But as you mentioned, there's precedent for workers organizing from below to defeat Republicans on a wide scale basis, even in really unfavorable political terrain. So we're seeing that now with the nascent federal workers movement. I'm sure we can talk more about that. But yeah, as you mentioned, I would really trace the beginning of this bottom up, what I call worker to worker organizing, grassroots upsurge to 2018, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Arizona, these statewide strikes that went viral over Facebook groups, in which they did end up getting some support from the unions, but in which it was really the workers from below that took the lead. And that showed that you can win. You can win even when the Republicans are in power. If you create enough of a political crisis for those in power, you can force them to retreat. And I think we're starting to see that now again with the federal workers who are organizing in a very similar way on a national level, relying on each other, using digital tools to build power at work and then to get support around the community to fight back and win. So yeah, it's exciting times, but you're right. I think it does go back to that moment.
What, and you're looking at, I mean, this sort of most recent era. And I want to talk about those examples that you use, specifically Starbucks and UAW and News Guild. But give me a sense of, like, just so that we can sort of address this and then maybe get past it. The difference between Trump's first 4-year term, and frankly, Obama's term prior to that too, I would argue, and Biden's term, and where we are today, just a month into Trump, in terms of the governmental support for unions, because I don't think people understand how the government has been really since Taft-Hartley, 1947, sort of putting their thumb on the scale for management on some level, like inhibiting what unions can do. And within that construct, the Biden administration was pretty good relative to what we've had over the past 40, 50 years.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. I mean, I have a huge amount of criticisms on Biden domestically and particularly internationally, but the one bright spot, or one of the very few bright spots, was the NLRB, which governs labor law. And Biden appointed person Jennifer Abruzzo, who's like a fighter for the working class. And really, that NLRB under Jennifer Abruzzo for 4 years did everything within its power to help boost this bottom-up worker sort of upsurge. And it helped. The reality is the power and capacity of the NLRB is limited. The labor law reform is still needed, and the power of the NLRB to like actually force companies to the table is still limited. But the NLRB did weigh in helping Starbucks get off and moving, and helping Amazon workers get their union win. And so it's a different terrain now, obviously under Trump, and it raises the possibility of the government doing more to support workers. It's not inevitable that the government is always going to side with management, and it shows that actually we should be demanding more of the Democrats when they're in power. Like, that actually sets a quite high standard that should always be replicated, that the NLRB should be actively supporting workers organizing, which is frankly what its mission is. That's what it's supposed to. It's not actually supposed to be siding with management. Its mission is to be helping workers act upon their legal right to unionize. It's just that in practice that hasn't been implemented. It was implemented for the last 4 years, and now it's not being implemented again for obvious reasons.
And we should say the way that it's not being implemented is that the National Labor Relations Board is completely dysfunctional now because Trump fired enough of its board members to render it without a quorum, so it cannot operate. Now, the people he's going to put in there anyways are also not going to be helpful towards labor. But he's basically more or less shut the system down. No?
It's a little bit trickier. That's true on a national level, but most of the day-to-day work of the NLRB functions on a regional level. So the basic things that the NLRB does, which is helpful, which is run union elections and allow for that, that's still happening. And it's important for workers to understand that, because otherwise there can be an over sort of reaction and feel like, oh, now there's no space, there's no legal rights. It actually is still possible, and people are still running union elections. Just the other day, union workers won their first election ever at Whole Foods under Amazon. So the local machinery is actually still running and functioning, but on a national level, which makes the decisions around like big high-end cases, then that is for the time being paralyzed.
All right, so let's talk about Starbucks. We've had some of the people you've written about on several times. Jazz Brizek, I think, has been on 2 or 3 times, and Michelle Eisen. They were out of that first sort of Starbucks up in Buffalo. But why Starbucks for in walking through this sort of story, in this trying to show people their ability to unionize?
Yeah, so just taking a step back, why should we care about Starbucks? Well, we should care about Starbucks because the fundamental issue facing working people and the crisis of our country at this point is that there's far too few workers in unions. So the book is an attempt to address, like, how would you actually organize millions of workers into unions, which is the precondition for stopping Trumpism, ending climate catastrophe, and all of this. And so what Starbucks shows, like some of the other drives that I profile, is a new form of union organizing that has the capacity to scale up to millions. There's a lot of good labor organizing that happens in the US, but the problem is because it's so staff intensive, it just can't reach the number of workers necessary. It's just literally there's not enough time and money to be able to organize large enough groups of workers. So what Starbucks did is it built a new model in which it relied far more on workers to do the types of things that staff normally do. And so it was able to spread virally. But what happened, as listeners might remember, is they won one union election in Buffalo. Hundreds and then eventually thousands of workers all across the country started flooding the email inbox and saying, well, how did you do that? We want to do it too. If it had been a traditional campaign, they literally would have had to stay with their initial plan, which was just to organize locally. They had no initial plans to organize nationally because they had so few resources. This was all sort of building the plane as they flew it. And so they had to pivot to something really dramatically new. And they actually built this new model in practice before they'd even theorized it. And they started having the workers themselves who had won this union election in Buffalo and start organizing, get on Zoom calls and essentially talk through what they had done with workers all across the country. And it was the only way they could do it, because if they had tried to rely on staff, they just wouldn't have been able to have enough conversations and enough support. So that is the basic reason why we should care about Starbucks as far as a model. But then on the merits of Starbucks itself, well, I think the basic reality is Starbucks is the sixth largest private employer in the United States. You're talking about over 200,000 workers. You're talking about, if workers unionize Starbucks, this will be the single most important union election, union first contract since the 1930s. There hasn't been a major breakthrough. It's sort of the heart of corporate America, really since the 1930s, early 1940s. And so what we're talking about is, if workers can show that not only are they able to win in things like journalism and higher ed, but take on the biggest corporations, defeat them despite the most intense union busting, right? The companies spent hundreds of millions of dollars just to terrorize and destroy workers. And they're very close right now to winning a first contract. So it's this amazing test case for the new model, but then also showing that, labor should be raising its ambitions. If this small group of workers could initiate a national campaign that's able to take down one of the biggest companies in the world, then it shows that all labor unions should really be putting real resources into serious organizing, particularly on a bottom-up level.
All right. So first off, and we should say, when you say staff, you're talking about, like, often what happens with a unionization project like this is that people will go to a union to try and get a sponsorship, essentially. And in this instance, I think most unions would have said, like, it's too difficult. You've got workers, you got 6 workers in Buffalo. And then, then you got 10 people in Syracuse. And then we got, it's just too hard, too disparate in that way. It's almost like the only way it could have worked with people who weren't aware of how difficult this could be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And unions are famously conservative, and not in the political sense, although sometimes the political sense, but just conservative in the sense that these are not risk-taking institutions. And so the idea of taking on one of the biggest companies in the world with so few resources would have just struck most unions as lunacy. And in fact, that is the norm. One of the issues we have in the labor room is unions systematically say no to workers when they reach out. It's almost the norm. The unions are very picky and choosy about what drives they'll take on, because they tend to be quite expensive. Fortunately, these Starbucks
everybody
workers
is like that. I mean, to be fair, to be fair, no, like this is the case with almost every single institution that exists. I mean, honestly, like it is rare to find any type of institutions that are, like, not risk averse, short of, like, billionaires like the Mercers, who are willing to just chuck out money to any anti-union or any right-wing project there is. But for the most part, people are afraid of expending resources in a way that's not going to work.
Yeah, you're right. This is sort of a classical sociological dilemma, is that the bigger your organization gets, the more you have to lose, so the more risk averse you get. So you're right. It's not just unions, but unions are maybe even worse culprits for a variety of reasons, because they're going up against the biggest and most powerful opponents too. So it's not just a risk in general. It's like them doing this is just poking the bear. So a lot of unions are sort of understandably reluctant to poke the bear. But for that exact reason, historically and still today, the forces that have been willing to take that risk have tended to be young people and young leftist workers, young radicalized workers, for political reasons and for personal reasons, they have less familial like responsibilities. So if they get fired, it's not quite the same risk. And then honestly, if you believe that a better world is possible and billionaires should not exist, and maybe you've had experience, maybe you volunteered for the Bernie campaign, maybe you went to a Black Lives Matter protest. This is the milieu that all across the country has been driving this bottom-up upsurge. And for them, the risk factor is a little bit different because they want to change the world, and they understand that there are risks, but that they're willing to take that. And it's been those workers at Starbucks and elsewhere that have really driven things forward.
Last year was a record number of petitions to start new unions, is my understanding, at least in modern times.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. We've had record numbers on that, and we had over 100,000 workers join a union through organizing last year, almost the same number the year before, and just a little bit less. So you're talking in the span of just the year prior. So you're talking about over 300,000 workers unionizing in this bottom-up way, primarily just over the last few years. This isn't a small army. This is not an insignificant number of people who now are building power against some of the biggest companies on earth. It hasn't been enough to turn around the whole country yet, mostly because unions haven't been investing in this as they should. It's sort of workers have had to do it despite the lack of overall support of unions. But you see how even in this unfavorable terrain, because even under Biden, the law was still really stacked against workers. The NLRB was good, but they were still systematically firing workers, ignoring the law because there's so few sort of repercussions for breaking law.
Starbucks seems to be shutting down a lot of stores still where there's like union activity, it feels like.
Yeah, they've started this again. The major check on them isn't really the law, but is public backlash. And so insofar as their brand is in serious jeopardy, if not already extremely tainted, then this has put some of a block. The worst of their union busting has been checked for now, which is good. It shows that the company's on the retreat. They're meeting with the workers. They actually have brought in a mediator. So the worst of the union busting at Starbucks for the time being has been put on pause. And it shows that the workers do have power. And they're on the process of winning.
It also shows to me that people don't want to share their blankets like they did in the Warsaw Ghetto. I don't know if you remember that, Howard Schultz. That will always stay with me. Howard Schultz admonishing Starbucks workers to be more like people in the Holocaust. Sort of might have wanted to sort of like think out that metaphor a little bit as to who were the people in the Warsaw Ghetto. In his scenario, it was his workers. And ostensibly, he was the Nazi guards, I guess. Anyways.
And it is funny that one of the nice things about unionization is that it sort of brings to light how just actually dumb in many ways these CEOs are. There's just a genuine obliviousness to the sort of realities of working people that when you sort of pull them out of their boardrooms, you're like, oh, this person shouldn't be like allowed to talk to the public and talk to working people.
It is fascinating. That was one of the most insightful, like his complete inability, his overestimation of his ability to be in touch with these workers was so, I think, illustrative of what was problematic at these things and the dynamic that goes on, right? Like he really thinks he knows these people. And he has no idea, none. Contrast what happened at Starbucks, which was a completely there was no union. And some people started in Buffalo and they basically grew one with what happened with the UAW, because it's still from a bottom up type of situation, but one happens in the context of a pre-existing institution.
Yeah, it's worth noting there was a little bit of union support in the Starbucks case, but you're right that the overall is really grassroots driven. In the case of the UAW, it's true that the union supported, but it's worth just flagging the prehistory, which is that the UAW until very recently was like the worst, most corrupt, most top-down union, and workers had to take over their union. So the bottom-up aspect started with workers running a slate to kick out the old leadership, electing somebody named Sean Fain, who listeners probably are aware of now, and taking back their union. That then in turn set the stage for extremely successful strike at the big three, won massive raises. And what the UAW did which was so smart, which most unions don't do, is they understood the importance of attention and momentum. And so at this moment, when the whole, eyes of all of the auto workers and really all of the country was watching them win and sort of massively defeat these companies, they said, okay, now that we have the spotlight on us, we're going to call on every auto worker across the whole country to start unionizing. Because the basic problem in auto is that you have the North unionized, but most of the new plants are in the South. And nobody's been able to unionize the South for ever. None of the major plants until just last year were unionized. They said, okay, we're going to seize this moment. We call on all workers to start self-organizing. We're going to give you the tools and support you need. And sure enough, within a few months, they had won the first union election ever in the South. They won Chattanooga and Tennessee at Volkswagen, and then they spread to Mercedes. And you see now still all across the country, auto workers are organizing and they're running more elections. And so you can see then there's ways of doing this bottom up organizing that do lean on existing union resources. And I think actually part of the argument I make in the book is you need that. If we're going to organize millions and millions of workers, you need unions putting real resources into bottom up organizing. So we shouldn't see them as mutually exclusive, sort of rank and file versus the union, but rather we need unions to be organizing in a different way, to be giving tools and support for workers to start self-organizing and to be able to organize at scale. And I think the UAW is showing how that can be done.
What is happening since the Mercedes plant? And I'm also thinking in terms of we just had an Amazon warehouse, I think it was in Nashville, that voted not to unionize. So I'm wondering, when I look at where unionization is happening, it doesn't feel like it's happening as much in industrial settings as much, in terms of expansion, or in sort of more in warehouse. It's more public facing things, baristas, teachers, people where there is a more of a connection with the public.
Yeah, it's a good question. I dig into the numbers of this a bit in the book. It is also the case that the bottom up organizing has spread to sort of more blue collar work that isn't as public facing. It hasn't gotten the same amount of media attention, but the biggest win, think about Amazon, one of the biggest wins recently was Amazon, and that's at a warehouse that isn't public facing. And actually we've seen in Amazon just over the last few months, even under Trump, a significant increase in the amount of organizing. There was a national strike during Christmas. And so the organizing at Amazon is actually spreading and is deeper than it's ever been. But you pose a real question, which is, how would you organize the rest of these industries? I would say it's just worth keeping in mind that the political economy we're in is that the vast majority of people work in service and public facing jobs at this point. So it's not that surprising. This is where the overall majority of people work. And also a lot of hard industry is still union. So there's in the North, for instance, the big factories tend to be unionized already. It's in the South that where the factories are not as organized. And, the warehouses of Amazon are one of the big targets. But it's not that surprising that most of the organizing has been in retail and in, education and in hospitals, because that's just frankly where most people work. And I think sometimes there's a romanticization of blue collar work, which doesn't exactly fit with the political economy we're in. It's not like all of the workers are there. We need to be organizing all workers, but it's actually, it's a good thing that the vast majority of workers are organizing wherever they're at. I think what you mentioned though is real, that the terrain is harder though for workers without that public support. I think they feel more isolated, and particularly in the South where the political sort of establishment is so against them. These are hard places to organize. There's a reason that they haven't organized to the same numbers as elsewhere. And so it's going to take a lot more resources. And frankly, it's going to take sort of more of a national upsurge for large numbers of workers to join in. It's not the case that you're just going to convince all of them through one-on-one conversations. These things tend to grow in moments and spurts. And, we're seeing that type of spurt right now in the federal sector under Trump. And we don't know when exactly that spurt is going to sort of explode at Amazon. So you have to keep on with that organizing. And then eventually it sort of breaks through like it did at Starbucks or like it did in the federal sector right now.
I want to talk about federal workers and particularly also I want to talk about EWOC, because I think that's it's a great organization. I think it'd be very helpful for folks in our audience who are wondering what's the first step that they take. But is there, to the extent that there is a broad union strategy, and there are people thinking about it on those terms, right? Like I imagine, Sean Fain is thinking about it. I imagine, I don't know if O'Brien is thinking about something like that as much as he is, thinking about like his next plane ride in Air Force One or whatever it is. But I imagine there are people who think about that and assess it. And where are the sectors that people are thinking, or let me step back from that. Are there ideas out there that we need to, this sector, either from an industry perspective or a type of worker perspective or a regional perspective, this is where we need to really focus our efforts, because if we unionize this state or these different states, it's going to catch on. Or if we unionize this industry or these shops, it's going to catch on. Are there people thinking like that, or is it more like we're following where the energy is?
Well, yeah, this is how I would say. First of all, the unfortunate reality we're in is that basically union density in the private sector is 6%. It's 10% in the workforce as a whole. So what this means is the vast majority of industries are non-union at this point, right? So there's so much terrain to grow in almost all industries that there is a necessity essentially for the unions in these different sectors to go big in all of these different sectors. We don't actually have the sort of luxury of just picking and choosing one or two key sectors. And that also does reflect a change in the political economy. Whereas in the 1930s, you could just really focus on hard industry. The nature of the economy is sort of disaggregated and it's much more diverse. So it's such that there isn't this one sort of linchpin that if you take down, takes out everything. People suggest that might be Amazon. There's some truth to this. The difficulty is that Amazon is extremely powerful, and you're probably going to actually need a much broader movement and a lot of time before you're able to take down Amazon. So I'm skeptical that you just sort of organize Amazon and then everybody else. My guess is Amazon will be sort of one of the last pins to fall, as it were. And I do think that the necessity is for a very broad-based labor movement to be scaling up everywhere. But within the industries, right, if you're talking about within specific industries, well, then, yeah, there's specific targets you should be focusing on, right? So you should be focusing in healthcare on the biggest non-union sort of HMOs and these different healthcare chains. Within the private sort of retail sector, you need to be organizing Walmart. You can't just be organizing Starbucks and Amazon. Walmart is still the biggest private employer. So you have particular targets within these different industries that have to be sort of a linchpin. And I think part of the issue has been that the labor movement has had its expectations so low and its resources so low for so long that even thinking about doing a big target and a big campaign is sort of outside the wheelhouse or the sort of sense of what's possible for most top union leaders. So again, it's going to come up to these workers from below to take initiative. What about workers? Workers can go salt, which means you just get a job at a non-union place. They did that at Starbucks. They did it at Amazon. They can do that at Walmart. They can do that in these hospitals. And you're starting to see that now. So I think it's going to be more, this is the dynamic where workers from below show proof of concept, win a union election in one of these big companies, like we saw at Whole Foods. They won that despite the labor movement as a whole wasn't investing in Whole Foods. Workers themselves took the initiative. They beat Amazon despite a just horrific union busting campaign that showed it was possible. That in turn is the type of thing you're going to need to force the union leadership, which for the reasons we discussed are really risk averse, to take the big organizing initiatives that right now, frankly, they're not really talking about it. Most of them aren't even talking seriously about like plans to defeat Trump. The level of institutional inertia and lack of strategy in labor would be hard to exaggerate.
Wow. All right, let's talk about EWOC. This is, and we've interviewed these folks, and we're going to have them on again in the next couple of weeks. But EWOC is, what does it stand for again? And then, like, where did it start?
Yeah, so EWOC's the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee. Began at the beginning of the pandemic. Some of us were labor organizers essentially for the Bernie campaign. And think about March 2020. All of a sudden, workers are getting thrown into work at the pandemic. There's no PPE. There's no hazard pay. People are freaking out about whether they're going to die because their coworker has COVID and no one has vaccines. Right. This was the moment in which thousands of workers started reaching out to us for organizing help. And we had to build an organization to help meet this need of workers asking for support organizing. Since then, EWOC has evolved into a nationwide organization with the support of United Electrical Workers Union, Democratic Socialists of America, which essentially at this point mostly focuses on helping workers start self-organizing to build a union. So we say that if it takes 100 steps to build a union, EWOC will walk you through the first 50 steps and then connect you with an established union that can take you on. So it's essentially a project that will support any worker in any industry start building a union. And the mechanism is simple. You just literally go to workerorganizing.org, you fill out a very quick form, and then within 72 hours, a volunteer experienced organizer will call you back and start helping you build power at work.
That's amazing. So this is very easy for people, at least, to start the process. I mean, it's a hard process at the end of the day, but the bar to entry, as they say, is low for something like this. Let's talk about what's going on with federal workers, because we're starting to see across the country, like on local news, like, I was an IRS agent, I got fired, or I can't get cancer treatment because my NIH grant, the people working on that had to stop working, or I'm a vet, I just 30% of the federal workforce, I just got fired. What are the federal unions doing? Are almost all of these people would be unionized? Again, it's tricky. The reality, unfortunately, is that so many federal workers aren't even members of their unions. And so one piece of good news is that since over the last 5 weeks, essentially since Trump took power, you've had an upsurge in membership in the unions. You had more people join just the largest national union in the federal sector, which is AFSCME. Over 15,000 workers have joined in the last 5 weeks, which is more than joined in the whole year prior. Wow. So you see people are flocking into the unions. And there's a saying in the labor room that sometimes the boss is the best organizer. Well, that's certainly the case right now with Trump and Musk, because they're just going so hard. I mean, they're really just, it's a sledgehammer. It's almost hard to believe how crazy their actions are, such that people who really were trying to keep their heads down, and maybe even up to a week or two thought that somehow they would be able to get through this just by keeping their heads down. And this, we should say, is something that is culturally inculcated into the civil servant mentality. There's a lot of fear about speaking up publicly. It's not part of the norm. But frankly, when Musk is unilaterally shutting down agencies, even though he has no legal right to, when he's unilaterally just declaring that people are going to be fired if they don't respond to his email within 48 hours, this creates a crisis mode. And I think you're right that it's not just a crisis for the workers themselves. The media, unfortunately, at first was just talking about how this is impacting the workers, but really it should be understood to be a crisis for American society as a whole. Like, literally, how do you think you will get your Social Security without a federal workforce? How will you get Medicare? How will you get Medicaid? Who will make sure that there's not just insane toxins in the water you drink, that your kids drink? All of these really basic things that, frankly, people take for granted, they're almost invisible. The workers that we've been talking to and that are I've been helping support, they put it well. They said the reason people don't think about federal workers so much is because we're doing our job. Right. We're invisible because we're doing our job. So you can take these things for granted, but less and less now, right? Just think about how many airline crashes there are. Well, that's because there's been underfunding of just basic infrastructure for the FAA and the airline industry. And so when you start defunding these things, like Musk is dramatically accelerating, then all of a sudden you start seeing, oh, this is what happens when you don't have federal workers and you don't have basic regulations in place. Yeah, I mean, just before we came on, we were saying, I mean, this would be a great thing for Democratic lawmakers to do, is to sort of like draw the connection between firing these people and vaccination rates dropping, let's say, and maybe measles happening, or firing these people and loss of food safety and worker safety and consumer safety. I mean, on and on. Those are the people to draw those connections. Lastly, let me ask you about other types of organizing. One of the things that I've increasingly, and we're starting to look into more here, is tenant unions. Now, you're a labor guy. What is it about organizing via labor that is I guess unique relative to other organizations? And also, like, what is your sense of tenant organizing? Because that seems to me obviously to be the most obvious other place to organize?
Yeah, I mean, I think tenant organizing is good. It's sorry, I'm not going to speak ill of it. I can say I'll try to make a positive case for why labor is where I put my energy and why I think it's the most centrally important. There's a few reasons. First of all, every public institution, every private company depends on workers. So this is just an inordinate amount of power. There's no equivalent of that in any other sort of sector of society. So the reality is that the federal government depends on its workers. The private sector depends on its workers. So that means that there's just a level of potential disruptive power of labor when you organize workers as workers that you don't have elsewhere. But there's a second thing, which is maybe less obvious, which is that workplaces bring together folks who don't necessarily agree ideologically. Like you're working with people all across the spectrum in most cases. And so the workplace, even more so than an apartment complex or some other institution like a church, is just a force where you have the possibility of speaking with and persuading people who don't already agree with you. And that's why labor organizing, much more so than any other form of organizing, is attuned to how you listen to your coworkers. How do you listen to people who don't already agree with you? And so you're not just speaking to the echo chamber. So you have to listen deeply to people. You have to find the issues that are widely and deeply felt. And then you have to find ways to move people who might not agree on all sorts of ideological questions. Maybe they vote for Trump. Maybe they're just totally checked out. Labor organizing, because it's grounded in people's economic sort of immediate necessities, right? Like, how do you pay for rent? How do you get by? It has a commonality that can unite working people all across all of their religious, political, ethnic backgrounds, what have you. There's a basis for uniting working people around their economic interests at work and sort of more broadly as a class that just you don't see in other terrains to the same extent. So because of the power and because of the breadth and the possibility of unity, I think that labor organizing is like the most important thing to be doing, both for sort of challenging economic equality, but then also at this point, frankly, just for defeating Trump. I do think that the most important struggle right now is the federal workers, because if Trump is able to destroy the federal workers unions, that's going to set the basis for him to be able to essentially use the federal government in a completely authoritarian way, right? There will be no checks and balances on him because the courts aren't going to stop him. So he needs to destroy the federal union to be able to then go do his full reactionary agenda on society as a whole. So the last best hope really are these federal unionists who are trying to put a block in stopping him. So I would just say sort of a pitch to listeners who want to get involved, if you're a federal worker or not, you should go to the following website, which is how people can get involved in this campaign, which is go.savepublicservices.com. So it's go.savepublicservices.com. There's going to be a lot of actions over the coming weeks and actually, frankly, coming days that we're going to need public support fully in on, right? Because it can't just be seen as federal workers fighting on their own. It has to be understood that the whole American public understand the stakes of defeating Elon Musk.
We'll put a link to that. You were ahead of me by a half a step there. I was going to ask you how people can help. We're asking people to do their part and show their solidarity by emailing, what was it, the opm.at.gov.com, so that they can also explain what they've been doing this past week to show their support for government efficiency, just efficiency in general, we should have all around. Go.savepublicservices.com give you an opportunity for folks to show their support for public workers and figure out how we can get the message out there. And Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, if you want to figure out how to start organizing your shop, your store, whatever it is, and that's at, what's the website for that is?
Yeah, workerorganizing.org. And so if you go to workerorganizing.org, then literally you will get connected, fill out a form, you'll get connected, and we'll help you start organizing your workplace in whatever industry you're in, whatever part of the country.
All right, we'll put both those links in the podcast and YouTube description today. Eric Blanc, we will also put a link to We Are the Union, How Worker-to-Worker Organizing is Revitalizing Labor and Winning Big. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay. All right, folks, we're going to take a break, head into the fun half of the program. Schadenfreude says there's an AI-generated video of Trump sucking Musk's toes playing on the TV in the HUD headquarters. We have seen that already. We will be playing that probably first up in the break. Evan from Portland. I'm a tenant organizer turned labor organizer. Labor organizations have the ability to strike in many places, whereas tent strikes are incredibly difficult. Interesting. I still like the idea of, I mean, obviously, labor has the most leverage, right? I mean, they have the most leverage. They can shut down broad swaths of economic activity. Much harder for tenant organizations to do that. But I still think tenant organizations are a good idea because it's so easy to create these relationships within a, your apartment building. And there's only so much you can do. You can figure out, like, just keep it active. It's almost like use it or lose it type of situation. And people can be activated at different times for different reasons.
Also, it's just good place to learn political skills. Julia Salazar, who's a council member, I believe, here in the DC, DSA member, New York State Senate, actually. Sorry, she started out as a tenant organizer.
Yes, and people are saying we can do both, of course. Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityReport.com. But if you don't have the resources, send us an email. We'll work out a deal with you. But also, the thing you can do to help the show is tell your friends. There's a lot of non-political junkies. Or, there's a lot of people who are like, MSNBC is just not doing it for me anymore. I want to have a deeper understanding of what is going on here. And, I'm frustrated with the Democratic Party. I don't want to vote for some rando third party that is going to be gone in 6 months. But I want to get ideas as to what the Democratic Party should be doing, whatever it is. Tell your friends, send an interview to your friends. Send a clip.
Yeah, or to Joy Reid and Ayman. What's Ayman's last name?
Ayman Moladin.
Moladin, yeah.
Moladin, yeah.
Wait, he's gone?
Yep.
No.
I don't know if I saw it.
I don't think Ayman's
I definitely saw
gone.
Joy Reid. I think.
I thought it was Joy Reid, and who was the other person that was let go?
I thought I just saw that on the feed.
No, I didn't know that Ayman was.
Yep.
Ayman's gone
like
too?
just a few hours ago, it says that they canceled the show as well.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. And they're making Alex Wagner just a contributor. Because
Right. That's what, yeah. Out. Fang, Capehart. Oh, Moladin and Reid. Interesting. I mean, there goes all the voices talking about Palestine.
Yep.
Not that Capehart was doing that. I don't know. I didn't really follow Fang. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I didn't follow any of it.
I haven't tuned in for half a decade.
She was mostly like a legal correspondent to begin with, Katie Fang.
She was?
Yeah.
But she had her own show on the weekends.
Yes, she did, yeah. But they're putting in the freaking Michael Steele, Simone Sanders, Alicia Menendez panel in place of Joy's, in place of the readout. So
what do they call them?
That's exciting.
Her numbers were bad.
Right.
What do they call the Michael Steele show?
It's a 3-person show.
Steel Man.
Yeah.
Steel Man would actually be good.
Make him a debate, bro.
Steel Man, Straw, whatever. I don't care. DSA in Atlanta, not just Joy Reid was talking about Palestine. Moladin was too.
Yep.
Moladin might be on a panel show. Nuclear powered GPT. I think we should have a grassroots organization, left-wing channels that promote renter unionization. We'll call it tenant media. Folks, don't forget justcoffee.coop. But tell your friends. And if you're listening to the podcast, give us a review on iTunes. Yep. Even if you reviewed us like 10 years ago. That's worth doing.
Or spam our videos into the replies of Elon and stuff.
100%. Yeah, you can spread the word about the show, and that is helpful to us as well. Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. They support farmers in Chiapas and West Africa. Check it out. East Africa, I think, as well. What was the other thing? Oh, stickers. I want to get the stickers. If you have ideas for a sticker, like I want a sticker like we can put next to like on the like egg labels. Freaking eggs. I was at Key Food. There's like no eggs.
I bought 18 for $15.
Yeah, you got it. They buy it there for whatever reason now. They sell them in bigger trays. I eat a lot of eggs. I mean, even at $1 an egg, I still think it's like the best food.
Yeah, it could be like probably $2 until I start changing my mind.
$2 an egg would be a problem, but $1 an egg, I'm like, $2 for breakfast. Okay. But nevertheless, I would like to see stickers that says something like, "You got trumped on," or something like that. I don't know. We got to come up with those.
Maybe Elon with an egg in his mouth.
Yeah, there's
Musk sucks eggs.
Luigi Snuggles, make them shiny stickers. Okay. Baltimore live show. My brother works for the National Labor Relations Board. He and his coworkers are thinking of responding to the email with a grocery list just to mess with Doji's algorithm. Yeah.
Cut and paste like coverage of lawsuits against Elon's factories for extreme racism. Just send stuff in.
Kowalski from Nebraska. How do you not have an egg guy? It's winter. The eggs get a little bit trickier. In the summer, I got egg guys. I got multiple egg guys. Believe me. ESVN on hiatus.
Yeah, we will definitely be back relatively soon. Emma obviously just needs a little.
I think after that game yesterday between the Celtics and the Knicks, I don't think Emma's going to be back for a long time.
I was just going to say that it's not helping that the Knicks cannot beat the only two teams that they would need to beat to remain competitive in the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. But yes, we will be back soon.
Lou Diamond, do you remember those Joe Biden stickers on the gas pumps that said I did that? Somebody needs to print those up for the eggs around. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that might have.
Yeah. Emma's out today, taking much needed rest. She's got a lot of extracurricular planning to do. Matt, Left Reckoning.
Left Reckoning, this weekend for patreon.com/Left Reckoning members. Go subscribe. We had Jody Dean on talking about her neo-feudalism thesis. David and I have a little bit of an allergy to describing capitalism as things besides capitalism, but I think it's an interesting sort of framing, and it does kind of feel like we're moving into a feudal era. So yeah, patreon.com/Left Reckoning to listen to that.
All right, see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflakes has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back the
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs that look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them.
Things I do for the bigger game plan.
By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We're back, folks. We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, we discussed earlier that you have the ability to